Hello, class and professor. I am Donovan Daly, and I am a student in the fall sociology class 332. I made this PowerPoint with the assistance of my trusty assistant, Miss Georgia Daly, local 7th grader, my daughter. The title of this PowerPoint is Ticket to Ride, and you'll have to forgive the rudimentary nature in which I'm presenting this, but I could not record video for some reason right onto my PowerPoint presentation. So I've had to utilize alternate means. Let's get started. The problem that I've seen and that I'm researching about is the media perception of law enforcement being one that is negative. The public is influenced by the media and feel enforcement is influenced by race based off of what they hear in the media. Law enforcement has had many adverse experiences over the last 50 years that's influenced people's perceptions of them. Examples of this would be race equality of the 60s, Rodney King beatings and subsequent riots of the 90s, and the hands up, don't shoot movement of the 2010s. Now, in each one of these, you'll see that oftentimes, while the cause may not all be law enforcement generated, like you saw in the Rodney King beatings and the subsequent riots, the response is always the same, which is in our civilized society, when there's a problem, law enforcement comes in and responds to it. This prompted me to write a research question. Are you more likely to receive a ticket from a police officer based on your ethnic background? The data that I used to gather information for this study was the General Social Survey. This, as we all used, collects data yearly on a myriad of questions from a cross-sectional look of Americans. The stipulations are 18 years or older living in a house. For this study, 2012 data was downloaded into our statistical package for social science program created by IBM. Out of the hundreds of variables, what I try to do is find ones that help me understand who police officers stop in their discretionary time. Discretionary time is not allocated to responding to 911 calls. What I mean by that is discretionary time takes a look at what an officer does when he has nothing to do. So most of the time, officers are responding to 911 calls, barking dogs, flat tires, that sort of thing. What I wanted to look at to see if there is an inherent problem with race-based policing, I didn't want to look at what police officers were sent to. I want to look at what police officers voluntarily choose to do when they have free time. I found two variables during this research. The first variable was the variable called ticket. This had the associated question, have you ever received a ticket or been charged by a police officer for a traffic violation other than for illegal parking? The second variable in this study was race sen 1. Race sen 1 was had the question associated with it, what is your race? The hypothesis and null hypothesis for this study were created, and they are, the hypothesis and null hypothesis are you are more likely to receive a ticket if you're a minority, and the null hypothesis is there's no difference in your likelihood of receiving a ticket based on race. This is one of the charts that was created out of our data. What this chart shows is the number of tickets or the number of respondents to the question. In this case, the number of respondents was 1,749. And as you can see, about 1,150 of them responded yes to, one represented yes, they'd received a ticket. Two represented no, they had not received a ticket. So as you can see, about 1,100 of them 1,100 people that responded, 1,200 people that responded had received tickets. and about 600 had not received tickets. When I did cross-tabulation on my two variables, what I found was that out of those people that mentioned that they had been stopped by police officers, about 66% of those people mentioned that their race was white. And out of the remaining people, about 14% more reported that their race was African American, and the final remaining people advised that their race was either Hispanic or their race was other race, as we lumped it into. And as you can see from the readout here, depending on what your race is, you're most likely to receive a ticket if you're a white male or white. And Hispanic or black people had just about the exact same chances of receiving a ticket, about 54% chance of receiving a ticket. Other races had about a similar chances, still less than whites, but they had about a 62% chance. So here it didn't appear as if there was an issue with whether you're going to receive a ticket based on your race alone. However, as we looked further into this data through our chi-square test, looking for significance, the level of significance, here's what I found. I ran this test and found that as you guys recall, with this test, we make P the level of significance. In this case, P was 0.05. And as you can see in the data here, the chi-square significance was 0.001. So with our equation, if P is less than or equal to the level of significance, then you reject the null hypothesis. So in this case, P was 0.001, which is less than the level of significance, which was 0.05, which indicates the null hypothesis has been rejected. If we look back at what the null hypothesis is, the null hypothesis says there is no difference in the likelihood of receiving a ticket based on race. So according to our regression work that we did there, it states that the null hypothesis would be rejected, which means the hypothesis you are more likely to receive a ticket if you're a minority has been proven. We take that information and we come up with some recommendations. Based on the outcomes, there's a strong finding the null hypothesis was not proven, which indicates that there's a correlation between race and being cited by police. Based on this information, the first thing I think we should do is to do more research and do more study to see if there's other indicators that this is an issue, more than just being anecdotal. As you know from looking at this data, out of all of the people that were surveyed, we still have a relatively small sample set of Americans participating in this survey. So I think some additional study could be in order. Next, I would encourage law enforcement to start teaching implicit bias as well as diversity. Implicit bias talks about those biases that we all carry on various aspects of our life. I think it would be essential for law enforcement to get out in front of this and to start to teach officers about the importance of being aware of those biases that sometimes they're even self-conscious or, unconscious of. So that's my study. It was great being in class with all you guys, and I wish you the best of luck in your future education.